All right, you guys know the drill. We are doing a sealed tournament with the new 5Ds legendary decks. I'm so excited for this product because, as you guys know, I am a huge hardcore 5Ds fan. It's my favorite anime and my favorite era of the card game, both nostalgically and to play, retro formats like Edison and stuff like that. And when I knew when they were going to import the new Synchron structure deck cards from Japan, they were going to do it in a different way than just straight up import the structure deck, because they've been not giving us a lot of the structure decks that have been coming out in Japan and trying to put those cards in other products. So I wasn't surprised that they tried to release those cards in a different way, but I was not expecting this. This is absolutely crazy. And then the amount of staple reprints in here make this pretty much the ultimate beginner's product, and a good product for existing competitive players who don't have all of the, well, I guess specifically the Mulch Armies, because those are the newest reprints in here that needed to be a budget reprint. So this product is great for pretty much every kind of player. It's good for casual players, it's good for competitive players, it's good for new players, it's good for existing players, it's good for casual fans of 5Ds, and hopefully it is good to play sealed. Really what I want to do with this video is, you guys have probably already seen a million unboxings of this, especially because it was delayed in the US, so it came out early in Europe. And then regardless of any kind of product delays or anything, you got to make sure influencers get it before paying customers do. So those guys have already opened this a million times, so you're not here to see me really open this. Hopefully you're here to see me talk about these decks in terms of their viability in sealed. So let's go ahead and get into it. I like the packaging, but apparently in addition to the manufacturing delays and issues, the packaging has had some serious issues as soon as it hit retail. As you can see, the boxes are a little bit damaged, and a lot of the boxes, the glue on the edges has failed, and they have arrived open, which I think is disastrous and not what you want at all. And then the decks are just kind of in here, which I don't know how I feel about. That might be a little bit of an issue, trying to keep them in good condition, because those corners can just bounce around in there. And there is zero extra packaging or rule book or advertisements or anything else in there. It is just a box with cards in it. I do appreciate that from an eco-friendly standpoint. And of course, we have the promos here you guys should be familiar with. Let's go ahead and take a look at those, because it does make sense to add the affiliated promo to each deck as we play this sealed. And the way this is going to work is I am buying a total of 2 of these, or actually I'm buying a total of 4 of these, technically 3 for me to have all the staples and everything, and a 4th one to raffle away to one of my friends when we play this. But we're going to be playing with 2 of these, so there will be 2 pilots for each of the 3 decks. The Synchron, the Blackwing, and the Rose Dragon decks. We've got this Ultra Artwork Chibi Stardust, Black Rose, Blackwing Dragon, and then the tokens, which the print quality in these feels really nice. They feel nice and dense, which is really quite cool. So we will be using those in the respective decks they go with. All right, so fast forward to all the decks already opened and sleeved up. This is taking place after the tournament was already done, so I can speak to how these decks actually played in a sealed environment. I was one of the pilots for the Synchron deck, and I can say that this was pretty fun to play. I love like crazy wombo combo decks, and the Synchron deck has always been one of the most exemplary examples of that play style, and I thought it was just a ton of fun to play. It does have some really frustrating elements in sealed, and we'll get to that. So the actual main deck is really solid. The amount of multiples they give you, including the Junk Converter, Junk Synchron, although Junk Synchron at 2 is a little bit weird, Stardust Synchron, tuning, all of that is really awesome. So the consistency of the deck is pretty good, even though your best starter is the Full Speed Warrior, and they only give you 1 of that guy. But there are lots of easy ways to get to your combo, but there's very obvious choke points. Junk Speeder, of course, being a negate magnet, as he always is. And the biggest problem with this deck is it lacks flexibility in the extra deck. There is not a full extra deck, and the levels they give you end up being really frustrating. You will be kicking yourself in frustration wondering why there's not like a 6 in here, like a Stardust Charge Warrior or something like that, or why there's not a 7 like a Junk Archer. And then even a card like Satellite Warrior would have been a nice inclusion in this that they did not bother with. So unfortunately what it results in is the boss monsters in this, the Stardust Warrior and the Shooting Star Dragon, both require Formula Synchron to make, or they can be summoned off of Crimson Dragon. And so there's pretty much exactly one combo that gets to your end board, and negation on Speeder or on the XL Synchro Stardust Dragon is a death sentence. And so really what you need to be able to do is do a combo. The combo that starts with Full Speed Warrior does let you get to that crazy end board of Stardust Warrior, Shooting Star Dragon, and a regular Stardust Dragon. And that's the best thing that this deck can do, although you may be incentivized to play a little bit lower to the ground and just make like a Stardust and keep your other stuff as setup and hope that your opponent can't break that. The Stardust is really good at protection against things like Blackwing Assault Dragon's board wipe, or Black Rose Dragon's board wipe, or even, hell, Blood Rose Dragon's board wipe. And you don't want to get blown out by those decks. The Shooting Star Dragon also provides that destruction protection, but that's pretty much it for your boss monsters. The Stardust Warrior is a summon negate, which seems strong, and the Shooting Star Dragon should let you OTK your opponent if you reveal enough tuners off the top of your deck, which is a lot more difficult than it sounds. I have had plays with it where I only revealed 1 or 2 and did not get a chance to really OTK with it. This deck is probably the second most powerful out of the two. It does make a crazy end board, but the lack of flexibility in the extra deck and the fact that the boss monsters require Formula Synchron to make. Like, usually what you're going to do is use Formula Synchron to make Stardust Warrior, and then using Crimson Dragon, you'll target the Stardust Warrior and summon out Shooting Star Dragon, which means you only had to use the Formula Synchron the one time, and that's how you get around the fact they only give you one copy of it, and the level 1 non-tuners are very hard to come by in this. You basically have to find a way to weave the Crossroads Sonic Chick into rotation. And a couple other cards that are really critical in here, obviously, the new cards, the Full Speed Warrior and the Synchro Fellowship are like the best cards in here, really. The non-engine is crazy. The Effect Veilers, the Ash Blossom, the Impermanence, the Perulia. And then Crossout Designator is insane for the Mirror Match or for the other decks in this box that have the same hand traps that you do. And then Call by the Grave can pretty much negate any hand traps. So you do have outs. You do have ways to play through negation on Speeder or XL Synchro Stardust Dragon, but you have to hard open one of 2 one-of cards. So not exactly that easy. Also, the Scrapyard is an interesting reprint in here. I think it's the first time that card's ever been reprinted. And it has exactly one target in the new Scrap Synchron. And Scrap Synchron being added to the list of cards whose entire name is archetype kind of thing. Similar to like Penguin Ninja and other cards like that, where the entire name is 2 archetypes combined. Kashtira, Tearlaman's Kashtira is another example of a card like that, where it's like just archetype. But if you already have the Scrap Synchron in rotation, or if you summon it off of Speeder, the Scrapyard is a completely dead card, and that's super frustrating. Same thing with the Duelist Genesis. It is also a dead card because its only target is to search the Synchro Rumble, and you're always going to be searching Synchro Rumble off of Crimson Dragon in order to finish your combo. So the Crimson Dragon being the way to convert the Stardust Warrior into also the Shooting Star Dragon, but you need to revive the level 8 Stardust Dragon or XL Synchro Stardust Dragon that you used to summon the Crimson Dragon in the first place, which is why the Synchro Rumble is important. And I'm glad that they included that in here, because it's actually a pretty much needed reprint. It never got a reprint outside of its original Age of Overlord printing. The most frustrating card in here, though, is right next to it, this Clashing Souls. I hate this card with a passion, and I cannot believe they put this in here. This is a disaster in Sealed, especially if your play group is very casual and they like funny haha cards. This game will end the duel immediately, because what ends up happening is the player that already has the greater life is going to win this exchange every single time. So if you take the challenge and you don't just let your thing die, if you pay all the way down to whatever life you have left, the person with the starting amount of life is going to lose. So it ends up just being like a battle trick that wins combat instantly, or it ends the entire game. And again, if your play group is really goofy, they're going to go as over the top as possible with this card. And it's just not a good card. I don't see, it was always a gimmicky anime card, and I don't see why they included it in here when they could have included another reprint of a card that's actually playable in this deck, or God forbid give you like a second Doppel Warrior or something like that. And yeah, so it's just frustrating. There's a lot of really great reprints in here, a lot of really great cards that are at multiples and at one of, but there's again those three spots in the spell lineup that I think are deeply frustrating cards to draw. Also, the Synchro Zone in the traps, I was actually horrified when I first saw that card in this deck's lineup, but in all actuality, it is not that big of a deal, because you read it and you're like, okay, this is some ignorant floodgate I'm going to have to deal with. But most of the time in this sealed environment, you're going to be battling with the Synchros anyway, because those are the only monsters that have any respectable amount of attack. So it's not really going to be that big of a deal. Anybody that's going to be battling is going to be battling with a Synchro most of the time anyway. And so it virtually doesn't nothing. But yeah, super annoying floodgate card that is not fun to see in here. So overall, I think that's pretty much all I have to say about the Synchron deck. I did have a lot of fun playing it, but you definitely practice the combo with a Full Speed Warrior. So it's Full Speed Warrior and a discard to do full combo that ends on Stardust Warrior, Shooting Star Dragon, and a regular Stardust Dragon as well without interruption. So you should be able to pull that off pretty easily. But you're going to have a more difficult time with it if you don't hard open the Full Speed Warrior, and it is a one of. So a combo that works better in Constructed, but if you're playing this in Constructed, you're playing a completely different extra deck that is full and a lot more malleable, and does not have the weird level restrictions where you're like, okay, I can only make a 5 or an 8, and some of the 5s I can make are very particular about what materials go into them, and yeah, just a very, very frustrating lineup of synchros that they gave you for this. But I guess that does unintentionally balance it for sealed, so who knows. But yeah, had a lot of fun with it, and now on to the next deck. All right, now on to the Blackwing deck. And what's crazy about this is one copy of the legendary decks out of the box basically gives you borderline a constructed quality Blackwing deck. This is insane, the amount of cards they put in here. They basically gave you all of the most modern cards at 3, and they even gave you some of the legacy cards that are good for Edison. So again, further speaking to the fact that this card is great for competitive players, casual players, Genesis players, Edison players, and just fans of the 5Ds anime. It's good for all of those people, and it's insane for that. So the ultra rares that they gave you are not new cards in this, obviously, because the only new cards was because of the import of the Synchron structure deck. So the ultra rares they decided to give us are some rarity upgrades or cards for Edison. So Vayu is actually not that good in this version of the deck, and the problem with Vayu is without Sirocco or Zonda, the only thing you're making is you're converting an already spent level 6, like these 3 names right here, into Armor Master. And you don't want Armor Master to be negated. Trust me on this. I'll come back to it. And then you could also convert the spent Armor Master into Silverwind, which is also not that good. So Vayu is not that good in this version of the deck at all. And then Blackbird Close is an absolutely insane card, and it I think it won somebody a game with this deck. But I'm like, man, this card seems insane. Why is this card not played in the constructed version of Blackwing? Maybe the card that searches a card that mentions Blackwing Dragon can search it, but they're usually trying to search a combo piece instead of that. So you don't want to just have to hard draw this in order to have it as part of your end board, but it's really strange. Icarus attack rarity upgrade for Edison is really cool. And then all the 3 of. So 3 of Simoon, which is the best starter. He sets Black Whirlwind directly to the field and then activates it, so you can search another guy that you can still normal summon, such as Sudri, which gives you a search off of Black Whirlwind and lets you search for a card that mentions Blackwing Dragon. Vada is that extender that lets you basically make a Blackwing Dragon from your extra deck for free. And then this guy, 3 of the Shamal is a little bit weird because it is a level 4 tuner, which sounds good, but rarely comes up if I'm being honest. And it's the card that gets you the Black Feather Whirlwind. But the good part about this card is the recurring a card from graveyard back to hand, which helps you get one of your extenders, and it's very, very important to one of the combos. But 3 of this guy actually does not seem like the right move. You wouldn't play 3 in constructed, at least I wouldn't. And then 3 Chinook, this guy is actually a pseudo hand trap where he can negate a monster effect. If you already control a Blackwing, you target an opponent's monster, reduces attack by 7, and negate its effect, which is pretty good. And then Chris the Crack of Dawn and Bora are functionally the same card as level 4 extenders. The piercing from Bora does come up a lot in simplified game states because a lot of the monsters you're battling against the Synchron deck and the Plant deck have low stats. So 1700 piercing is actually quite good in a simplified game state here. Sharnga is a very important extender that you'll probably be weaving into most combos that end on the Blackwing Assault Dragon and the Full Armor Master. And Gale is, of course, a fantastic battle trick you guys should be familiar with from Edison format. And it does come up here quite a bit. Again, it's a great way to reduce the attack of something huge like the Shooting Star Dragon or the Blood Rose Dragon, to be able to get it small enough to beat over with something else that you have, because nothing we have has quite that much attack. I think the Blackwing Assault Dragon has 32, but if that guy has 33, it's pretty hard to get over. And the rest of these are just extenders. So every single Blackwing name in here is a good choice. The one-ofs are all usually extenders that can be special summoned from hand under certain circumstances. Usually they are if you control a Blackwing, which is a super easy thing to achieve. So not only is this the most constructed quality deck out of the 3 in the box, but it's probably also the easiest to pick up and play. So I deliberately gave this one to the players in the play group that I felt confident that they could use it best. So these are players that don't have a lot of experience with the game, but I could trust them to pick up this new strategy and play it efficiently, and they did pretty well. The hand traps, of course, having Droll in here is crazy. Droll against the Synchron deck is pretty good because if you Droll them before they go into Crimson Dragon, and Crimson Dragon cannot add the Synchro Rumble, then their combo definitely falls apart there, so that's pretty important. And then Ash is pretty good, or Droll is actually pretty good in the mirror match too after Black Whirlwind resolves. Droll on Black Whirlwind is crazy in the mirror match. Fuelos is probably the best of the 3 Mulch armies in this sealed environment, if I had to guess, and it did come up a bit. 2 Black Whirlwind is fine because of how easily you're able to get it with 3 Simoom. 2 is perfectly fine. Same with 2 Black Feather Whirlwind, being able to get it off of the 3 Shamal is pretty good. The spells are decent, like Call by the Grave is crazy, obviously, but the others are pretty old school cards. So Chalice, MST, and Book of Moon are all pretty old cards. You know, these 2 are basically Edison reprints at this point, but they're all very good and sealed. And Chalice basically being the versatile thing of effect negation, and also a way to boost the attack of something you control, does come up quite a bit. And then these 2 traps are insane. So Delta Crow Anti-Reverse, the fact that this can be activated from hand under certain circumstances is absolutely insane, and a great reprint for Edison. And then Twin Shadow, I was playing against one of the players that had the Blackwing deck here, and I had the Synchron deck, and I was going to push in for lethal, and she Twin Shadowed and summoned Armor Master, regular Armor Master, and I was like, well, crap, what do I do here? Because Armor Master cannot be destroyed by battle. And so if all of my monsters just are beaters and there was no way to destroy the Armor Master by card effects, then that really drug that game to a stalemate and actually turned it around in her favor quite a bit. So I was about to punch for lethal, my full combo went off, and that one card absolutely halted me in my tracks. So Twin Shadow can be pretty good, and then the fact that our Armor Master cannot be destroyed by battle puts the Synchron deck in a very precarious situation where they can't do anything about him unless they get exactly Droplet. So the fact that Droplet negates its effects and makes it able to be destroyed by battle is really the only way to clear that guy, and that's just crazy to think about. The rest of the Synchro lineup, I actually think this is the best extra deck out of all of these decks because you get to use all of these guys, and they're all relatively useful. I guess the only other one I would have liked would have been like Obsidian Hawk Joe, but that's just getting greedy. The level 6s are all really good. 2 of the Boreas is insane. I can't believe that they gave you 2 of those, and 2 of the Assault Dragon. And then, of course, I guess 2 Blackwing Dragon as well, if you include the promo, which, of course, I did. Simoon, with just another Blackwing in hand to banish, should be a full combo to get you to both Blackwing Assault Dragons and Full Armor Master. But I was messing up the order of it a little bit. It just needs some practice, but even if your end board is just one of the Blackwing Assault Dragons and Full Armor Master, that's still pretty good, because outing a Towers in this is very, very hard to do. And the burn damage from the Blackwing Assault Dragon does add up. And most of the other decks are going to have to do a pretty involved combo to get to a point where they can clear the Full Armor Master. Because even Droplets will not do it, because he's immune to Droplets and Chalice. So you have to summon something that's bigger than him. So the Synchron deck has to make Shooting Star Dragon, and the Plant deck has to make Blood Rose Dragon. And if they need to do a combo in order to do that, they are setting up the board wipe of Blackwinged Assault Dragon. So Blackwinged Assault Dragon will nuke the board after dealing some burn damage, and the Full Armor Master will remain on the field because it is immune. So I think this deck is crazy. I think in the hands of a skilled pilot, this is the best deck out of the 3 by a huge margin. Although I will say our matches, when we did everything sealed, were pretty evenly matched, which was fun to see. All right, and lastly we have the Plant Synchro / Rose Dragon deck, and this one is the worst of the 3. It is so frustrating in the way that it is designed. And this was not meant to be played in sealed, clearly. This was meant to be a companion piece to go with the new Plant Synchro Rose Dragon support out of Doom and Dimensions. And so if you buy this and then you pick up some packs of that, you should have everything you need to play that deck in Constructed, which is true. It's also a decent deck to play in Genesis. I've done a video on that on this channel. But to play this sealed is so frustrating, and our pilots were very frustrated when they were reading the cards and realizing there's like no combos you can do, really. And I'll kind of talk about that. So the ultra rares they included are interesting but frustrating. In the case of Miracle Fertilizer and Black Garden, Miracle Fertilizer is a nice rarity upgrade for Edison for the Gigaplant deck. Having a high rarity Black Garden is nice, but we just got a Starlight Black Garden in the tin, so this is a little bit of a baffling choice. The Basil Rose Shoot, however, is a really nice choice because this previously only had like an OTS Super, was the only foil printing of it, so I will gladly take an Ultra for Constructed. And then Blooming of the Darkest Rose is a terrible card, but it's technically searchable off of, I think it's Red Rose Dragon's effect. And so it was only available in common and rare before, so a rarity upgrade for that is pretty nice. The Rose Dragons themselves are probably the best part of this, and really any kind of combo that you're going to want to do, you are hoping that you hard open like both red and white to be able to normal red, special white, synchro for 7, special rocks from deck off of red, and rocks add Basil Rose Shoot for follow-up or to make a second level 7. But basically all you're doing there is going first. If you're sitting on Moonlight, Moonlight is great interruption into opponent's play because of what it can do against high-level monsters. So your opponents like Blackwing Guy, Synchro Monster, or the opponents like the Axel Synchro Stardust Dragon, you can just shuffle that bad boy back. So the Black Rose Moonlight is one of the best turn 1 end board pieces, and it's pretty easy to make. So that's pretty good. And then you could do, if you opened well, you could do a combo that is make the regular Black Rose Dragon, wipe your opponent's board, use the Basil Rose Shoot to revive the Black Rose Dragon, and then just use the Black Rose Dragon as a beater after you have denied your opponent of resources. So the pilots that played this deck actually did do a lot better than they were thinking they would, and a lot of it is just playing low to the ground, conserving your resources, and exhausting your opponent. So if your opponent goes all in on some crazy wombo combo and expends all their cards and they lose to Black Rose, for example, and you are still retaining advantage, you're going to win that grind game by just using it as a beater. So, like I said, if you make Black Rose, nuke the board, use Battle Rose Shoot, revive the Black Rose, and then let's say if you have Thorn of Malice to equip to it, you're in a pretty good spot, but that's a pretty unlikely position to be in. The non-engine in this is a mixed bag. So the Ghost Ogre and the Imperm is awesome. Ghost Ogre and Imperm on Junk Speeder is crazy. Obviously, Ghost Ogre on Black Garden. I'm sorry, Ghost Ogre on Black Whirlwind is crazy. Imperm on Speeder or on Boreas is crazy. Imperm on XL Synchro Stardust Dragon is crazy. Stuff like that. But what's frustrating about the non-engine Spooky Dogwood is basically useless in Sealed, especially because the time rules have changed, so it's just not nearly as good of a hand trap anymore. And in testing, my opponent was playing the plant deck and I was playing the Synchron deck, and I boosted them up to like 19,000 life points with Dogwood, and I still killed them over the course of like 2 or 3 turns because them gaining 1,000,000 life just meant nothing in terms of advantage. So just not a good card. And then Meowls is good, but of course not the best Mulch Army out of the 3. So the non-engine is good for interrupting your opponent, but it is a little bit frustrating. Monster Reborn being in there is kind of nice to revive the spent Black Rose after you've used it, which is kind of nice. And but other than that, so that's pretty much all the positive things out of the way. The frustrating things about this that I just absolutely cannot stand is, so this package right here, the Blood Rose Witch and the Witch of the Black Rose, this is a combo that makes basically a 1-card combo to make a level 7 synchro, starting with the Blood Rose Witch, and they're missing a card for this. So what you're supposed to do is normal summon the, I keep calling it Blood Rose Witch, but it's Ruddy Rose Witch because of the awful, stupid English translation. You normal summon it, you tribute it, it stacks this one on top, or lets you add this to hand, you summon it, and you can stack a card on top of the deck, so when you draw it off of this, it's something you want. So the card you're supposed to stack is the Rose Fairy, so that when you draw the Rose Fairy off of the Witch of the Black Rose, it automatically summons itself, and that's a 3 and a 4, one of which being a tuner. So that's how you make a level 7 with just this one card. A little bit of an obtuse combo, but it's an older combo from the strategy. But this doesn't include the Rose Fairy at all, so you can't do that combo. So when you open this package, you're like, okay, I'm going to like waste my normal summon on this to get to the Witch of the Black Rose, and then just draw nothing and pass my turn. It's terrible. The Lone Fires. There's 3 Lone Fires, but there's no good payoff to summon off of the Lone Fires because all the Rose Dragons are dragons. So you're either going like Lone Fire, Lone Fire, Lone Fire for Rose, Lover as an extender, or Spore as an extender, just to deck thin. If they had put like a Titanial or something in here, it would have been better for Edison reprints, and also would have been something else you could do with Lone Fire that didn't involve the extra deck. You could have a main deck plant beater, or all of the big attack plant princesses that Aki summons in the manga. Your Rosaria, Stately Fallen Angel, your Queen of Fallen Leaves, or whatever, like all those from the manga that you know the ones I'm talking about. They were promos and never really saw that much play. Or the other plant princesses that were meant to be companions with Titanial that we got over the years that all got reprinted in Secret Slayers, the set that included the Rikas and stuff like that. None of those cards are in here. So, or even Gigaplant. Like Gigaplant's a 24. Gigaplant would have been a nice, like, can you imagine if this came with an ultra rare Gigaplant for Edison? That would have been so cool. It would have been a great Lone Fire target. It would combine well with Miracle Fertilizer. Miracle Fertilizer is super frustrating in this because you can't use your normal the turn you use it. So you better be reviving something good off of it. And most of the payoffs in the extra deck are dragons. The plant synchros in the extra deck are just setup cards, except for the Splendid Rose, which is kind of a beater. But let's talk about the extra deck a little bit too. So like, the Crossroads Dragon is not a good card. It's very frustrating to use. So the cool thing you can do is you can basically perform a synchro summon of a Black Rose Dragon on your opponent's turn and board wipe them as a form of disruption, which sounds really powerful. And you can do it with two plants, two monsters that are a plant or a dragon, one of which being this card, regardless of levels, which is really cool. But the downside is this is a Link 2. So you have to have 3 bodies for this, 2 to invest into this, and the third body to perform the Link Row summon with. He was doing it before Yummies were even invented, which is cool. But it's just not very good. It's 3 cards invested into a extremely telegraphed board wipe. It's not nearly as good as the retrain of Black Rose, which only invests 2 cards, and it's just quick effect whenever, and it's part of an M board. It's like also a tax dragon. So then the Bramble Rose makes the Cross Rose completely redundant and constructed. But of course, they couldn't include any of the new cards they just given us, or else this loses its value as a support product to that. The Garden Rose Maiden, you're searching Black Garden in this version, which is nice, but other than that, you're not really making the best use of its effect, and a 5 is kind of hard to make. Same thing with the Garden Rose Flora, you're just never making this card. The Pirelius being an ultra rare upgrade is super nice for Constructed, and for Genesis, I'm definitely going to be rarity upgrading my version I play in Genesis. But again, you're not. There's like no targets for this, so the only thing you're reviving, it revives like a level 5 or higher plant. So the only thing you're reviving are the other synchros. It is a completely ridiculous choice in here for sealed without something like Titanial. And so honestly, if they had just put like one Titanial in here, it would largely fix a lot of the problems. Like Titanial and the Rose Fairy would have fixed the problems I had with this deck. Like get rid of the Blue Rose Dragon, get rid of, hell, even get rid of the Rose Girl over here and give me Titanial and the Rose Fairy, and this deck is so much better in sealed. But as it stands right now, you are basically just hoping that you get lucky and open a 2-card combo that makes a level 7 synchro and some hand traps. You are hoping that your opponent plays really sloppy and invests a ton of their cards into a combo that is interruptible with Ghost Ogre or Imperm. And you're hoping that the board wipe of Black Rose or of Blood Rose is enough, and that Blood Rose's 3200 attack can win the game, which sometimes it does. So overall, I think that, again, this is the most poorly set up deck out of the 3, and it's very, very frustrating to play sealed, but it can win, and it did win a number of matches. I think actually one of the pilots for this, who is the most skilled player at the table, I gave him this deck somewhat deliberately to be like, okay, you are the most skilled player at the table, you're going to play the worst deck, and he still did good with it. He complained the whole time that there were no combos in there, and still won every match. So that just kind of goes to show that, tempo and advantage and understanding card economy and stuff like that is what really matters in games like this, and understanding the matchup. And of course, if it's a sealed event, then you know what the matchup is going to be, and you know what to expect from your opponent. So, but yeah, that's about it for this, guys. I hope you guys enjoy this, and definitely give this thing a try sealed. Like, pick up, if you're planning on picking up 1 or 2 of these already as it is, play them sealed for a little bit and just have some fun before you put them into your respective constructed decks.